Rookie Oven's been open now for 2.5 years. Some of the Rookie Oven clients are here, some of you aren't from Rookie Oven. It's a co-working space for tech startups, so it's some of the best tech talent in the city is based here. And the shipyard used to be engineering centre of excellence in Glasgow. It was world renowned. So here we are again, the best engineers who came into the city working on tech. Then we have tourism, which hopefully the other half of you are from, which is Scotland's second biggest industry. And one thing about it here, I think you do tourism technology and have a lot better. So the people in the tourism sector bring it together. So tonight we have two speakers, Daniel from Cali Uni, who's a lecturer in tourism and events, and Stuart, who's going to go first talking about sustainability. And we're going to be doing these meetups every month. And I just want to have two rules. I want everyone to be open and transparent with each other. And I want to help each other and seek advice. So people in technology need to get to know tourism better. People in tourism need to get to know technology. Together they do a lot of good stuff. So I want to have these as the ground rules. And another thing I want to try and do, and this is maybe a bit ambitious but rubbish, we'll find out. We want to be practical examples of best practice. We want to actually have real world examples from people in this room of what they're doing, what's working, what's not working, what they need to do there. So, who wants to program all that? And not people who work in tech. Tourism sector. I'm asking that because I've got this product called Pocket League, which is got the aim of making mobile apps available for tourism. So what we're thinking is if tonight we get people who would like to have their own app for tourism, we'll pick one, and then 4 weeks from now when we get together in October, we will present together about the mobile app that we made. Sound good? Don't seem so enthusiastic for your app. Yeah, so next month, 24th of October, get that in now. And I'll give everyone a chance to go get a slice of pizza or a can of beer if we need it before Stuart starts his talk. Cool?
Cool. So has everyone got enough beer and pizza to keep the next 15 minutes? We'll start. So, hello everyone, thanks for coming along this evening. My name's Stuart Ashworth and I'm going to be talking about web accessibility today. So it's an interesting topic that I've been working on in the last couple of years through various client projects. So the goals of the talk is to give you an introduction to what web accessibility is and why we should be thinking about it when we're building websites, and also to give you some actionable steps you can take first thing tomorrow morning to see if your website is accessible and what to improve it. So that's the goals of the talk. So hopefully everyone can get get some useful information out of it. So as I said, I'm Stuart Ashworth. I'm a web developer, and I specialise in helping software teams deliver projects for the mobile and web. And as I said, I've been working on accessibility for the last couple of years on a few projects with international airlines who've recently had some regulations imposed on them to get up to the website content accessibility guideline standards. So that's a big thing that's been happening over the last couple of years in the airline industry. So first of all, what is accessibility? First of all, I want to get a wee bit of a feel for how what people know about accessibility already. So has everyone actually heard of accessibility or know what it entails? So a few hands around. And so I'm assuming everyone has a website that forms part of their business, whether it's bringing new leads in or converting leads or just as being a major part of their product. Safe to say most people are in that sort of boat. That's good. So, and there are a few people and a few businessy people and a mixture there. So hopefully I can gauge things right so there's not too technical and won't go over too many people's heads, and likewise it won't be too basic. So what is web accessibility? So most people have probably heard of the term of accessibility in terms of the physical world. So for example, a building is thought to be wheelchair accessible if it's got ramps and lifts and automatic doors and all that to make the building accessible to everyone regardless of any disabilities they might have. So web accessibility is just taking that concept and bringing it into the virtual world and onto the web where we use it every day and we're using more and more every day. So with this in mind, web accessibility is ensuring everyone can acquire the same information, create and publish content, consume content created by others, and interact with other people, regardless of any disabilities that they might have, whether they're, whatever they may be. And when the web was created in the 80s, this concept was really at the heart of the whole mission. It was about opening up information and communication to everyone, regardless of where you are in the world or what disabilities you might have or anything like that. So web accessibility is really about bringing that focus back. So in order to understand how disability impacts how people access the web, we need to understand who will be using our websites and the challenges that they're going to face when they visit the sites, and explore the ways that things we have to put in place to overcome them. Those early days of the web, the content that we were sharing has changed a lot. The amount of visual, non-textual information has grown hugely. There's so many more images and videos and audio, all that sort of stuff, and we take it for granted, but it's that sort of stuff is inherently inaccessible. And similarly, the way we've accessed the web has changed dramatically too. We're doing it on laptops, smartphones, tablets, and using screen readers, and we're doing it in different places too. So we're accessing outside while we're traveling, and just pretty much anywhere that we have a phone signal, we're accessing some sort of digital content. So all these permutations of devices and locations and situations have a big impact on how people with disabilities interact with the web, and it's something that we have to think about. So I'm going to talk about the sort of disabilities that affect web users. So often people jump immediately to the visual impairment because the web is a visual medium. That's the sort of go-to thing, which is which is a huge aspect to think about. But I'm going to go through a few here, and obviously it's not an exhaustive list, so we're just going to pick a few to talk about. So about 3% of the UK population have a visual impairment, and that can range from a small amount of sight loss to complete blindness. And obviously, as I said, it's a very visual medium, the web, so making our content available to these people is very important. And for some people, it might just be, with lesser sight loss, it might just be able to zoom the page, make the text bigger, and that's enough. To have the software that reads out the web page to them. So they're through the page and it reads out the content to them. So another disabilities to consider is decreased motor ability. So not everyone will be accessing your website with a mouse. A lot of people will be using a keyboard, exclusively. And even people that can use a mouse, being able to position it accurately on the page to click buttons and select links, a lot of people struggle with that. And this is the exact same problem with touchscreens. If buttons are too small, links are too small, the website becomes unusable. Also, the way that websites are structured and laid out, the language they use, and the use of distracting elements, can be a real barrier to people and how they use the web. And also, we mentioned auditory disabilities. We're using video and audio so much more now, and these sorts of things are impossible to interact with without transcriptions and closed captions on videos and that sort of thing to make these more accessible. Another thing that's quite common in the UK is colour blindness. So 4.5% of the UK population have colour blindness, So simple color choices in your website can make a huge difference to these groups of people. And finally, I want to mention temporary disability and situational disabilities, which is not something that I was really aware of or had thought about until doing this sort of work. So I consider myself fortunate not to suffer from any of these types of disabilities, but at times where I could easily fall into one of these categories temporarily. So for example, have you ever used your phone outside on a bright day and struggled to read the text? Perhaps you've broken your arm and you can't use the mouse very easily. Or you're a new parent, you're sleep deprived, you're carrying a child, trying to calm them from screaming, and you're trying to search for parenting tips on your mobile. All these things are impairing your ability to use the web, and all these sorts of things that through all these categories of disabilities, if we improve on them, can help everyone. So with that in mind, accessibility is really about designing for people. It's about being inclusive in your design and thinking about all these different people when you're making your websites. And generally, better accessibility is better design. So by including these sort of thoughts in your design process, you're building a better website and a better design for everyone. So hopefully everyone's bought into the fact that accessibility is important, and there's a lot of people that would benefit from such things. But I've collected some stats together just to give you an idea of the volume of people that are, will benefit from accessible design. So 1 in 5 people in the UK are affected by disability. So that's 12 million people. So there's about 30 odd people in the room tonight. So that's about 6 people in here that might have your website, which is quite a lot of people. And these figures are similar across the United States and other countries. National thing. And according to this research, the spending power of these people is £212 billion, which is a huge amount of money to not capture by not making your website accessible to them. And I'm sure if you went back to your bosses tomorrow and said you can have a slice of £212 billion, there's probably not a lot of people would say no to that. And bring it closer to the tourism industry. 20% of day trips taken by include at least one person that has one of these types of disabilities. And narrowing it down to overnight trips, it decreases slightly to 14%. All these people are doing the same, booking accommodation, booking flights, transport, finding out where they're going to go, what attractions they want to see. They're doing all that same sort of research, and being able to cater for them with an accessible site means that you're going to be a step ahead of your competitor down the road whose website they can't use. So what can we do to improve our sites? We've gone through all the things about why this is important. So this is your homework section. So hopefully you can take a few of these tips and go back to your websites tomorrow and have a look. They're completely basically non-technical, so you can at least analyze your sites and get an idea for how well your site's doing. So we mentioned that not everyone is using a mouse to navigate your website. So one thing you can look at is whether your site's keyboard's navigable. So can you put your mouse away and go through your website just with the keyboard and see how well you can interact? So the reason this is important is because obviously we've mentioned people just don't use mice, but screen readers users essentially exclusively use keyboards. So being able to move through the page, get to each element and have that read to them is very important. So that's the homework. Test your website tomorrow without a mouse. Can you reach all the links? Can you reach all the buttons? Is any hover information, is that exposed when you focus on things? And can you always see where the keyboard focus is, which is also really important, because if you can't see where the keyboard focus is, then you don't know where you are on the page. So that's really important. So next thing is text alternatives. So obviously we mentioned visual elements are really important. So we talked about closed captions and text transcriptions. But images as well need to have a text alternative. So when a screen reader comes upon them, they're going to, if they don't see any alternative text, then they're going to read out the file name, which is usually a long string of gobbledygook, which means nothing to them. So if you've got a picture of a nice view of your attraction, put that in the alternative text. And similar things like icons and this sort of thing, you need to have text representations for them. And they're simple things to correct. You know, it's not like it's not going to take hours and hours to just describe what the images are showing. Next thing is forms. So I'm presuming probably everyone who has a website has a form of some sort, whether it's just a simple contact form or something more in depth, where they're buying something from your site or that sort of thing. So they're really important to get this sort of stuff right. So first of all, the form fields should always have labels associated with them. Without that, the form field is meaningless. There's no semantic information there to tell the browser or the screen reader software what the field is expecting. So fields should also have labels that are associated with them in the HTML level. Similarly, if there's validation and error messages in the form, that sort of stuff should always be linked to each field so that you can easily navigate from any errors back to the field that's involved with the error. So that's really important. And finally, fields should be logically ordered and have appropriate help text and be they should be beside each other when they need to be and logically structured, because if you have to jump around to try and figure out the form, that's not going to be useful to anyone when they're using the form. So we touched on text size earlier. Is the site's text big enough? We sort of recommend as a rule of thumb that 16 pixels should be the minimum, especially with the screen resolutions that devices have these days. And we should also test how your website behaves when you zoom in to at least 200% is usually the sort of maximum that you want to be able to go to and still have the site function and layout correctly, and make sure everything's readable and usable at that level. If you're going to try this tomorrow, try using Firefox, because Firefox will zoom the text, Chrome will just zoom the whole page, so you don't get the same effect. So that's something that's useful. And finally, something a little bit more complex is color contrast. We mentioned that if you're on a bright day, good color contrast is really important to make that be able to see your text. So the sort of guidelines is for 4.5 to 1 ratio for normal size text and a 3 to 1 ratio for larger text. Obviously, it's not very easy to work that sort of stuff out. So what you can do is use one of these contrast checkers. I've put a link in the slides there. So you just put in your colors and give you the contrast ratios and tell you whether it's a pass or fail based on the web accessibility guidelines. So that's something that's important and dead simple to implement. So that's your homework finished for now. You can breathe easily now. So we're just going to run through a few tools and resources that you can check out as well, which have some tools for doing a lot of these checks automatically for you. You just punch in your URL, and some tools for some resources for learning more about stuff. So the webaim.org has got all sorts of information about accessibility, all the guidelines and blog posts about how to implement good forms and all the aspects of the web design. The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines is official guidelines that we should be adhering to as web developers. So it's quite an intimidating document. So just bear that in mind when you go into it. But there's it does outline everything for all aspects of a website if you want to dip in. And Accessibility Weekly, you'll often see accessibility abbreviated like this with an A and 11Y, sort of save you writing out the whole word. So that's a weekly newsletter which curates a lot of accessibility-based blog posts and articles and books every week. So save you hunting down all the newest content. So that's really good. I'd recommend that. And finally, there's a few tools. This is really good stuff for analysing your website and giving you a quick snapshot of how accessible your site is. So AXE is a Chrome extension which is free, and you can just click a button, give you a whole list of recommendations, things, all that sort of stuff. Similarly, tenon.io, you can put in your URL and it'll give you a big list of recommendations, which is really good. And same with Wave. Now NVDA is a free screen Windows users can use. So you can download that for free, have a play with, and see how your reacts to a screen reader. So how they work and how what the experience is like. And if you're on a Mac, VoiceOver is built into OS X, so you can just activate that and get started straight away. And then finally, this website, Readable, is a website you can put in text, and it'll give you a score for how readable it is. So they obviously don't want to make your content too much of an advanced reading level for people. So it's a good website to give you an indication of how complex your text is. So if you want to have a look at these, obviously the URLs aren't there, so you can download these slides. I'm sure Michael will pass it around. So that's the end of my talk. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them and see if I can guide you towards some more information. So thank you very much for listening. No questions? Easy night. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the talks, and I'm sure there's more pizza lying around for everyone to have. Thank you.
Apart from having loads of guys up in the tech, downstairs is a museum at the Fairfield Heritage Centre, which is actually open and that's the thing for you guys. All the weeks I'm heading down that way. Okay, so we have second speaker starting. One thing I forgot to say to everyone, I'm in trouble for it. Charlotte, what's the hashtag? And if anyone needs Wi-Fi, it's Rookie Oven, and the Wi-Fi passwords let me use Rookie Oven Wi-Fi, so it's really easy. Don't go hacking it. That was a sinister laugh. Yeah, so let Daniel take over.
Okay, so hi everyone, and thanks for having me today. So, first off, I know some of you will be thinking he's very young for a lecturer, but I have done my time in industry and have come in through the sort of back door into lecturing using my industry experience. So, I do work within the Department of Business Management at Glasgow Caledonian University. My expertise sit within tourism and events, the subject group. And today, when I was asked to do this, I started to think about all the conversations that I've had over the last few months about technology, tourism, but also how tourism's whittled into the events industry and how Glasgow depends so much on tourism, but also digital. And last year I was at a meeting, GCMB, and we were talking about how do you make Glasgow the new Silicon Valley? And I was like, wow, that's a bit ambitious. But is it though? And that's what started to penetrate in my mind is, how do you do that? And what to do about it when I was thinking about it today was 5 years ago, 6 years ago, there was a discussion on creative industries and how do we create Glasgow as a creative industry? What is a real feature that we're doing well? And fashion came to. When I started speaking to fashion lecturers about what they did, they started talking about how they started to engage with startups in the Glasgow area and how they started to use student opportunity to work with the startups in order to develop their process and to make connections. And some examples that the university have used have been people like 18 Montrose, Track, and now that's gone further to companies now 5 years on, like Next, now working with the university, taking our graduates. And I thought that's something that the tourism industry is missing here in Glasgow, is we have such a wealth of students who are knowledgeable and that should be interactive in our industry, whether it is tech and whether it's tourism. Now, who's from the technology back? Hands up, who's there? Who's from the more tourism, the industry side? Do me one thing before you leave. Talk to somebody from the other side. The other side, talk to somebody. Introduce yourself. Get the conversation going. Okay? And that's what I'm going to talk about today is part of my role before I came into the university was I worked with a large international tourism company called TUI Travel, which formerly, as of this week, was Thomson. Before that was Thomson First Choice. So I worked with commercial areas overseas in the UK. And what I started to see was with students that were coming out and working in the industry, what was needed. And there was more need for students engaging with industry. That was missing. There wasn't enough students coming in to say, I've done this consultancy project, I've worked with them, I've done a project with them, and companies weren't seeing that. What else? There was a real need to develop entrepreneurial skills. We are not, say I use the collective we here, but are we really encouraging our young, inspiring leaders, our managers of tomorrow? Sometimes we're not growing the good ideas and saying, do you know what, you're in third year of university, that's a brilliant idea. I need to put you in touch with somebody I know. But that's what goes wrong, because there isn't enough engagement from those that are doing well in industry 5, 6 years down the line. So we need to bridge that gap. And that's what here is really good for. We've already started to do that, to work with some of the tech companies in here. Agile, that's why I'm here today. Been interacting with them. What can our students do to help grow their product? But also it's the transfer of knowledge back the way. What can our students learn from them? The start of the discussion about the tech, the digital industry, because that's something that's not always there. So there was also the learning to sell themselves. This is something that I've identified, even as being a lecturer, is that students can't always sell themselves or what they've done, which then impacts when they go into industry because they struggle to sell the product. But having them connect with industry at third and fourth year gives them that opportunity. What is the product that you have? How can I help you sell that? How can I help you then promote myself? And that was missing also. And then finally, the value of their ideas. Sometimes a student would come up with an idea, but are too scared to say it, or there wasn't the resources out there to develop them into an entrepreneurial business to take it forward. And that's what's out there at the moment. Yes, the universities have opportunities there. We have UHatch at Glasgow Caledonian, where we support growth. But sometimes they need to hear it from one of you in the room, that their idea is good. Because you're the ones that are creating the future of Scotland's tourism, the Scotland's digital sector. But then there needs to be people that follow you. So by one of you having the thought to say, that's actually a really good idea, that then creates more entrepreneurs, which creates growth in the sector, which then makes us, as Glasgow, an internationally renowned destination for digital tourism, for tourism itself. And that needs to be started in this process. So how do we do it? How do you all help with that? And this is what I was thinking today was, how do you, those of you that have the expertise in the digital area, those of you that have the expertise in the tourism, the industry, you connect together and then you inspire the next generation because they see the collaboration. They see the collaboration happening in Glasgow between smaller companies, and they see the sharing and the transfer of knowledge. It's about, how many of you have had the conversation in here about, oh, we could work with another company, or, oh, that's a good idea. How many of you have started a discussion with a university or a colleague or somebody in a different business? How many of you have followed through? Some of you, most of you, some not really followed through. Started the discussion, but we've not gone there. So we need to be offering these mentoring. How many of you could say in a month you could give up 30 minutes to either talk to somebody in another company you could develop or talk to a student? You could, couldn't you? 30 minutes of your time. Inspire the next generation. Yes, I know I have a job to do in a lecturing situation of giving them the theory, the knowledge, but you help link the theory to practice. You help give them the knowledge to grow. But it's also about integrating projects. How many of you have started your own business and are thinking, I don't have enough money to do this research? Yeah. You know, there's people sitting in institutions in Glasgow wanting this opportunity to help you. You need to connect with us. You need to offer this, say to us, come and help us. And that's what we've been doing here, is the cross collaboration, because then you can inspire somebody to go into the same area of business as you and grow tourism and grow the digital area. Because somebody in tourism may be really interested in what you're doing in digital and may inspire them to go in to do their masters in digital and then start their own business. That's what we need. But it's also having master classes, having real life experiences. Some of you have been interviewed, some of you will interview, and you may be asking the question, what have you actually done in industry, or what have you actually done to connect, to give me real life experience? But we can actually do that. We can offer that with a connection between everybody in this room working together, sharing opportunities, but also with a university. So I thought I'd better bring in something academic and talk about the method. What is the method? Well, it's about starting the conversation. So that's why I said talk to somebody in the room that's not from industry or not from the digital side and have a conversation. Find out about them, find out what they do. And then see how you can maybe share and help each other. Because that's how some of the biggest companies in the world have grown. That's how tour operators have turned into tour operators. Conversations with airlines, with destination services. What can I do? What can you bring? That's all there. So it's about starting the conversation. It's about created opportunity. Can you create an opportunity for a new product with somebody in this room that could drive tourism further? Or can you create an opportunity for a student that's interested in the field that you're doing your work in? And Stuart's talk there was all about accessibility of websites, which inspired me to think there's so many students in our university that are talking about accessibility and visitor attractions and the link that has together. Can they get talking? And then that creates a project, whether it's a project to help your business, whether it's a project to help somebody else's business, or whether it's a project to help grow tourism. Because we're all here for the same reason, to grow this area, because we either have a vested interest in this area of tourism or we work within it. So it's about moving the conversation forward and turning it into something. And I wanted to give you an idea of some of the concepts that we've managed to do, and what's highlighted was the first one I have on here is Trinidad and Tobago, the cultural ministry. So this is a project our students did in developing their digital media in terms of What services do they have that's a tourism product, and how could they use their website to promote it to incoming tourists? Why are we working with Trinidad and Tobago and not companies in Glasgow or not local authorities? But that started with a conversation at a networking event like this, and it grew. Also, Glasgow City Marketing Bureau, one of the projects I did during my Masters was with the help of Daniel, and it was creating a food tourism route for Byers Road. And then another project was through Resource Efficient Scotland, which was digital online training tools to help the hospitality sector, to help people actually be trained in resource efficiency. But this was all under the area of tourism management. This was all students doing their dissertation projects on these areas, which then these businesses took forward and helped them grow. Visit Scotland, we do the work with their accessibility team. Pollock Brother Halls, and Glasgow 2018 is one of the biggest new opportunities we're doing. But one of the best opportunities we've now got is with AdJam, with the consultancy there and the opportunity they're going to have, the students are going to have to see inspiring new concepts coming to life, and the opportunity they will have to inspire the students when they come in, talk to them, or have them work. And that's what we do need. We need that. We need you. So the one thing that came to mind about tonight for me was not partnerships, was not working together, it was the interconnectivity that we can all have with one another in order to grow Glasgow's tourism and the opportunity that's out there, especially with the people in this room that have so many ideas. They can help those coming through to have these ideas, to become inspiring leaders like you all are in your own right. There's nothing better than having somebody like yourself in this room come and talk to the students, because they see the real life leaders and what they can aspire to be. So, if you take anything from this, talk to one another. See what you can do to help one another to grow tourism, to use digital technology, because we are moving into a digital age more and more. And it was when you come to an event like this, you talk to other people and your train of thought goes off from what you should actually talk about, because you have really interesting comments about how everybody being born into this age is digital, and then you have really interesting comments about what people who are graduating from tourism degrees believe their job should be. And that then takes you off on an absolute tangent. But if you do take any conversation tonight, talk to the people in this room that are helping create digital Glasgow's tourism. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
Maybe a wee bit off piece in a little bit, but there's a lot, you talk a lot about digital, and digital has had an effect on a lot of industries. So the print industry, e-books came along, disruption, and there's a wee bit of a resurgence. So what's the digital version of that inside tourism? What's the old guard still? What's the old guard afraid of in tourism?
One of the biggest things that, from my industry perspective of tourism, is the honesty and the websites of TripAdvisor and the websites that can diminish a hotel, a B&B, because of one bad review. But also there is this talk of the move to the internet, to the holiday sales, to the move away from the high street. But that's not happening, because the high street is still alive with selling holidays. Because if you look to the new concept stores that Tui Thomas Cook are creating, they are digitally innovative. You walk in and you automatically touch the screen, it brings everything to life, and that's important. I don't think there's a big fear of tourism and digital. I think there's much more that can grow, because print, it did kill print at times, but I don't think it's going to kill tourism. I think it's going to grow it and make it better.
It's a case of adding digital into an already established model and just building on that and coming up with some extra ideas.
Yeah, it's how to improve what's already there, or it's about identifying the gap, like the accessibility we're before me.
Photographer, and I see VR into this tourism industry as well.
Yep.
Being another add-on to add experience for consumers.
Well, it comes back to what we had the conversation about, is adding the consumer experience. You walk into a store now, you can put the virtual reality on and see what it's like to be sitting on a beach in Jamaica. That's adding value. Digital is adding value to the tourism sector, and we need to encourage that, because everyone has access to it. Anybody else?
What do you think the rise of Booking.com and Expedia
In all honesty, I don't have an answer to that because I worked for one of the biggest companies in the world. But if that's something that you want to find out, have our students ask, find out, collect the data. There'll be research out there on it. That kind of area is not where I sit, so I'm not going to try and come up for you. But it will hinder it, but also it will support it, because if you click on something, you might not want to go to the bigger hotels. You might want the smaller chains. Yeah, which they have, but now Expedia have gone to work with Thomas Cook. They're starting to grow together. So, no.
Would they get as much traction or promotion if they were on the likes of booking.com? How would their marketing budgets get them in front of people who potentially didn't know who they were from like another country or a different region if they weren't searchable and findable on booking.com?
I think it's a case of making themselves searchable and findable. That's really what it is.
Yeah, I would definitely argue there. I think a lot of the smaller companies don't utilise like SEO properly, or they don't really maximise their websites. So the real question is, what can they do that makes them niche, that stands out? Because everyone goes to booking.com, but actually then you realise, oh, this is boring, and then you want to go for something that's more customisable. But if they're not very good at their SEO practice, then they probably aren't going to rank very highly and not going to be noticed.
It's like the riches and the niches is the same kind of being a niche can help you.
But even if you're a niche, you're still going to get taken over and completely destroyed by these big behemoths. Like we are a rafting company. We're number one in search for rafting. Our SEO is good, but we're being eaten by everybody. And in a couple of years' time, we're going to compete by 80% marketing budget. You cannot compete. Expedia, Booking.com, Viatron, that's the internet. Until something radically changes.
But is it not a case of building a community and emphasising the fact that you're independent? So it used to be everybody drank tennis lager, now people hate tennis lager, they all want small craft beers.
Let's go to Italy where it's a delicacy.
People are moving away from mass production. They want boutique hotels, they want personalised experience, they don't want to do with these big multinationals. It's just how do you get your message out there, how do you build a community around that?
How do they find you as opposed to Airbnb's add-on for bespoke tours, you know?
I've got an idea for you to talk to you later.
See, this is what you need to do. This is exactly what you need to do. Is talk to one another.
Successful.
Is to have these conversations, share ideas. It's going to grow business. It's what we want. And the last thing is we don't want our future leaders or people leaving Glasgow to go work elsewhere. We want to be keeping them here. And that's what we're seeing happening, is they're going away to work for some of the biggest firms out in New York, out in London, and they're not staying here because there's not enough. Or sometimes they can't see the opportunity.
My question is more about students. I'm kind of trying to gauge the appetite for the students and what kind of ideal projects that they get involved in. I'm a TV producer, so it's completely different to probably a lot of people that are here in terms of the avenue. What I'm keen to explore is the insight you can get from the travel tourism students that know industry, because at heart of that is just people, no matter where they are, it's just people, and people need to be entertained, people want to be entertained. With access to entertainment properties, I can see value in a bridge of that, but a lot of people I've spoken to have been like, don't really see the relevance of it. But to me it's kind of like, well, for instance, zombies or the Mighty Power Rangers or anything you can imagine that has some kind of value because of the nostalgia factor and travel tourism as an industry. It looks at what the trends are and things, it looks at people, it looks at individuals, it looks at kind of topical things like that. Is there a bridge in your mind for that and from the student point of view? Because I feel that the students do have more of I want to engage in things like that, but I'm just not sure how relevant it would be to the projects for the students ideally.
Well, there always is, and we have been a massive media department at our university who actually will take options into doing tourism modules because they want to know about it. So it's then bridging that gap to creating an opportunity within there. There's always a scope for a project, because whether if it's not with me or my colleagues in the tourism and events department, there's another cascade of departments within the university that are crying out. So for instance, the Glasgow 2018 project, in partnership with sort of creating the moment, we've managed to get a whole media department, journalism department, HR department into that as a big project. So there's always students wanting, but it's then the conversation we have to have is, well, what is it you're looking for? And then they go back and say, well, yes, we can do that, or this is maybe something we can do. We can focus on how film tourism is taking over Scotland, because you look at Outlander, it's massive. The American market are coming over to see that. They want to see where the bottom of the main actor was in the window of the castle. That is what they want to know. That is the first question they will ask. So yes, there is scope for that. There's all the students want to do their dissertation on film tourism, taking it back to Braveheart. Still has a massive impact on Scottish tourism. So yes, there always is. So
You don't want to have ones. I've heard so many people say the complete opposite, and I've been saying for 2 weeks to them that they were wrong on that, but someone else thinks that that's something that can be explored. Thank you.
if there's no other questions, thank you very much. And if you do have any questions, come see me afterwards or just talk to one another.